Okay, so yep, there we go. So hi everyone, it is Rollie and welcome to Monday Whispers Chat. So Bridging the Gap Wellness is all about creating a holistic life and finding balance. Each week during Monday Whispers Chat, we will be featuring an amazing and inspiring woman. My name is Gigudo Migwin Kwe, which stands for Talking Feather Woman, and my earth name is Rollie Allaire. I am a holistic trauma coach, spirit flame keeper, and a soul healer, and I work with women who've experienced trauma by bringing them, using my all of my experiences in psychotherapy, as well as combining that with holistic healing. And so today I am excited to be able to have Rachel here, and we apologize a little bit about the delay. And so Rachel Erazo is going to share have a mindful empowering day using palmistry. So Rachel loves to work with people to magnify their natural psychic abilities, expand their divination practice, and revamp their personal spiritual beliefs. She started in 2014, and she's been helping people with their intuitive divination practices and psychic development for 2 years. So welcome, Rachel.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So do you want to tell me a little bit more? Like, is there anything more that you'd like to be able to share about yourself?
Sure. Just to give a little background about me, what I specifically like to do is I'm an intuitive divination mentor, but also I'm a psychic biz coach. And the way that I do this is because I'm a firm believer in that if you are doing anything with your abilities, learning any type of spiritual practice, magical practice, divination practice, it needs to be fun and it needs to be easy. And if it's not, then why in the world are we doing it? You know? And I really come from this background of, I have a theater degree. I'm a director, I'm an actress. I do a little bit everything within theater. So I've realized after a certain point in 2014, when I first started learning tarot, my roommate chucked a deck at my face and was like, here you go. And that's how I got introduced. It was the whole thing of, wow, this is so similar to what I am learning in my degree right now, which was acting at the time. So I realized how much characterization and divination actually meld together. So my mission right now is, for the past couple of years, I've been spreading palmistry and how, I've been spreading tarot and how it can be used in easy ways. And now I'm transferring over to palmistry because not all the time do we have our cards with us, you know? Sometimes it's easier to just pull out your hand because you can't exactly remove your hands. You know, if you can, that's really cool. But and at least it's something you always have with you.
Oh, Halloween's coming, so maybe that'll be
yeah, like if maybe you can be the traveling palm reader that, you know, just unscrew their dominant hand, you know. But that's really my mission right now. And one of the easiest things I like to do with palmistry, I know everybody's probably going to be staring at their hand this entire time, but you can see exactly where you are now and how it's almost like you're a cartographer. You can see where you could possibly end up and how you can change the path for yourself. And I really want to focus on helping you create a magical life, have a really empowering day just by looking at your hand in the morning. So I thought Rollie would be the perfect person to talk to this about because healers are perfect with palmistry.
So does your hand change? So like you said, like when you wake up in the morning, so do the lines change on your hands?
Yeah, actually, the fun thing about it's very interesting if you learn more than one type of divination. You'll notice each one has its own kind of voice. Everybody, you can talk to 15 different card readers and they're all going to give you different variations of cards reading, right? But when it comes to palmistry, literally, once the line means something, it means something. But the cool thing about it is you read your dominant hand in the morning, your non-dominant at night, because it's like, if you look at your GPS when you first get ready to go to work in the morning,
Yep.
and you can see where construction's going, you can see where there's delays. And by the end of the business day, it's going to translate onto the map of the road, right? Same thing for palmistry. Your dominant hand says the path that you have laid out for that morning. And then by the end of the day, depending on what's happened, that's transferred over to your non-dominant hand. So every day your hands change.
Oh, that is so. I'm gonna have to like take pictures of my hands every day just so that I can see what changes.
Yeah, that's actually a really good tip. That's one of the things that I have any of my palmistry students do is take a sketch of your hand, take a picture, even an ink blot of your hand, because they change every day. If let's say you have a goal on you want to be more financially stable, you can over time every week or even every day see how that changes and how closer you're getting to your goal or how farther away you're getting from it.
Oh, that is too cool. I never ever knew that. So when people have talked about doing palm readings, I always thought that your palms are always the same and that your lifelines are the same and that your marriage lines are the same. And that's so cool. So tell me, what is it that you do with your clients? So like, how do you do this with the palmistry? So.
Well, the cool thing about palmistry, like let's say, because there's two different ways that you could do this. You could do it as someone who's learning or someone who as a client wants to get a palm reading done, right? When you're receiving a reading, I was just telling my group the other day, this is the quickest way to learn someone's personality in 5 seconds. Even if I'm not near the person, like I use palm reading while I'm grocery shopping all the time. Because all I got to do is see the cashier's hand kind of from far away. And then I'm like, I know not to go to your line. You're going to take too long or you're going to smash my eggs, just based off of how their hand is. This is something that unlike tarot where you have to sit down and have a clean space to actually lay out the cards. And some people need to be in the right frame of mind.
Yep.
This is more something you can do anytime, anywhere. And that was the reason I picked it up because I'm in the middle of class. I can't memorize keywords. I'm memorizing Aristotle right now. So I need to have something that's a really quick reading. So as whenever I meet a client, and even if I shake their hand, I know how the reading is going to go based off of just that one thing. So a good palm reader, if you're looking to get your hand read, is going to be able to tell those kind of things very quickly. And they're going to be able to give you actionable steps. So like, for example, if we go back to the money thing, if you want to be financially stable for stuff, they're going to want to look for certain shapes on your hand. And if they're not there, or if they are, but they're not completely closed and things like that, they'll tell you how you can close them or how you can make them show up. So if you're looking to get a hand read, that's something you would look for. If it comes to being a reader and how you can get started with this, paying attention to your hand every day is really good. And keeping a journal, because it's so detail oriented, because you have to pay attention to all the little lines. It helps to be mindful of noticing the tiny things like that. Otherwise, it'll just look like a big old jumbled mess. Does that make any sense?
It does. So your lines are supposed to connect to each other? Like, do they connect your hand to hand, or like, how does that?
Yeah, so for example, I have a new awesome camera now that I can actually show this. So for example, you see the big thing in the middle of my hand that looks like a triangle?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a money triangle. So if I want to see how financially stable I am and, at work, then I would want this triangle to be closed. But you can see there's kind of a little gap here. This line doesn't meet, my lifeline.
Yep.
So what would I tell myself as a reader? I need to work on my savings account a little more. I need to be more mindful of my spending. And I need to actively work on my money habits, maybe clear some money blocks, do some work around that, things like that. And as I do that every day, it'll get more closed and more closed. So that's just one example. And if I were to see someone's hand that didn't have any triangles on it, then and they're having issues with their finances, I would say, okay, then you need to start working on some money habits if you want to bring more income in, or if you want to bring more abundance in, that kind of thing. Or the most common question, because 9 times out of 10 are we soulmates, you know? You know, the love reading. So the quickest way to do any reading like that is palmistry, because specifically, go back to the hand here, right underneath your ring finger will show up an X. Now, it's a little difficult in the lighting to see for mine, but I've got 3 or 4 that are layered over each other. They're just super light. If you have an X underneath your ring finger and it matches the person that you're with, then technically you're soulmates. And this can happen in terms of the soulmate, not like only just lovers. It can happen with mentors, parents, children, pets, things like that. And it'll show up on animal paws too, underneath the same paw, underneath the same appendage that they have. And the more soulmates you have, so like I have a couple under my hand because I have my husband, and then I have a friend of mine, and I have my child. So it layers for me. Whereas, you know, my husband, he got his first one when he was 8 years old, because that's when he met his best friend. And then he met me in middle school, and that's what added his. So those are a couple examples of different signs that'll pop up. And the longer you're with someone for the soulmate one, the deeper that one will get.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like, and that would be on your dominant hand.
That can, if it's on both, then you're with your soulmate for the rest of your life. If it just shows up like on your non-dominant hand, because then it'll be later on. You haven't quite met them yet.
Yeah, I can't really tell.
Magnifying glasses are perfect for palm reading.
I can't really tell. I can see lines, but I can't see if they're X's. I have no idea. So what other kinds of things can you tell? So what other kinds of things can you tell with palmistry? So lovers, money.
Yeah, the things that the most interesting one I find, which was one of my tips, was for working on your self-care when it comes to having a mindful and powerful day with palmistry, is notice your stress lines. They show up as thin little spidery lines on your hands. Majority of the time I see people with it like on their thumb. And the more they're spread out over your hand, the more in need of a vacation you are.
Okay.
Or in need of some kind of treatment for your stress. If you aren't in the good habit of self-care, then they will spread everywhere. And you can tell them, sometimes they show up actually as check marks on your hands, which at that point I would recommend seeing a doctor for stress, or a healer to help with your stress. They'll show up on your fingers and get all spread up and things like that. So a big proponent as something to tell on your hand if you need some genuine self-care and you need to start treating yourself better, especially as a woman, you need to watch your stress lines, and they take a long time to show up, but they take a long time to fade away too. And the worse they are, probably the longer vacation you need.
So if I would have checked my hands before I went on our Nurture Your Inner Child retreat, I probably would have more lines on my hands than I do now, according to what you said at the beginning then, right?
Yes. You would have had more. But now that you've come back and you've had a nice detox from everything, they're a lot more faint if they're still there. If you see that they're still showing up and they're getting deeper, then that would be another opportunity to take a look at what you're doing in your life that's causing stress or what's happening to you, and work on that.
So, and those are the lines that would be here, you said?
They're spidery lines. They're really, really thin. I'm going to see if, yeah, you can see them down here. They're really thin.
Okay.
And they spread all over your hands. So even like, let's see if we can get this to focus. Can we get you to focus? Yeah, you can see them vertical on my hands. They're very, very thin.
Okay.
And you can catch them in the shadows sometimes, like up here. You can see them up here.
So they would be in your fingers? Like in your fingers?
They go all over your hands.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see mine. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, you got some big ones down on your Venus mount, down right there.
Down in here?
Right
Those
there.
are stress lines?
Those are big. Yeah.
Okay. Huh. Okay. Well, then I have those on both hands.
Yeah.
I guess I need to go back to the bush.
Yeah. Or even like, also the fun thing about that, as you learn palmistry, the area of your hand will tell you where you're having stress at. So the whole thumb mount, this whole area right there, is the mount of Venus, you know, Aphrodite. So that's your love mount. So if you have issues in your relationships, it'll all be right here. So if you have any rifts in your family, rifts with your kids, rifts with your spouse, stuff like that, that'll all show up here. But your allergies and stuff can also come up through there.
In there? Okay.
It can also come up in there. So it can be a mixture of the two. It just depends on what's happening in your life.
Well, and that would make sense because now is fall when we have a lot more, so it's a lot more wet, and we've had lots of rain, so a lot more moldy kind of thing. So that would make sense because my sinuses are out of whack.
Yeah.
So
that's why it'd be showing up then. And if your sinuses are out of whack, you're probably not feeling too cuddly right now. So that would make a lot of sense.
Okay. So yeah, that's really interesting. So what other kinds of things can you tell about, because you talked about being able to have a mindful, empowering day using palmistry. So what are some other things?
The big thing that I find palmistry does is it teaches you how to be really mindful of the small things, because we just looked at, you know, our hands for stress lines, and they can be so tiny and so faint that if you don't notice it at first, then you know, then it can get out of control before you notice it. So a key to having a mindful, empowering day is noticing the little things and not thinking you're crazy, you know? It's like confirmation on your hands of, okay, that's why I'm feeling funky right now, because I have stress over here, or I'm feeling some anger over here. I'm having a hard time expressing my emotions into words and things like that. You find a way to appreciate yourself a little more. So for example, our headline, everybody, generally you see, you know, the spammy blog posts that pop up on Facebook saying, if you have this line, you're amazing, you know? Everybody knows our headline. It goes right across the middle of our hand. It swoops. Usually I've noticed that people who may take longer to do things and have a hard time getting out of their head about stuff, they get really upset with themselves and they beat themselves down. But if you notice how long your headline is, that's an explanation for why. That's how long it takes you to think through things before you actually get to the action. Like, I have a toddler, I've got a 2-year-old, and I would sit there and think to myself, why in the world does it take her forever to actually pick up her toys when I've told her 15 times, you know? She's got a headline that wraps almost all the way around her hand. So I'm like, that's why. Now I'm not too angry at her. It's just how she is at this exact moment. So by noticing the little things like that and seeing how they are in your hand, then you're able to appreciate yourself a little more and not beat up on yourself and be more mindful of how you work through things. So you might give yourself a longer deadline at work, or if you have a business, you might give yourself a little more planning time to think things through and get as detailed as you want and not beat up on yourself so much, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. I find that really important when it comes to being empowered, you know, not digging down on yourself.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah. Hi, Linda. How are you? Glad that you can join us.
Let's see.
So if you guys have any questions, then pop them in and Rachel will be more than happy to answer them, because I know that Rachel's famous words are, yes. I love questions.
Yes, questions. I do. Questions are delicious. I love questions. Hello, hello. Let me know, Linda, if you have anything on your hands that you're noticing, because I know there's all kinds of funky lines. Sometimes our thumbs can be shaped weird and things like that.
So what do you mean that our thumbs can be shaped weird?
Ooh, so depending on
That's a good yummy question.
Yeah, depending on the shape of our hands, like our actual fingers, that'll determine the way we think through things. Typically, and it goes along with the headline too, typically, depending on how fat your fingers are in between the lines on your hands, that's how long it takes you to process through things. So you can tell by looking at mine that it's genuinely pretty straight. So I get through the thought, get through it. Okay, it takes me right before I actually manifest it, before I actually do anything, to think through it, because I have a little bit more bulge around the bottom of my fingers.
Okay.
Especially on this finger. So when it comes to our thumbs, so like for example, my thumbs are like this. They naturally bend like this. So I have a lot of hyperextension in my body. So like I can do all kinds of stuff with my fingers and stuff. I'm too flexible of a person a lot of the time, so my fingers show it. Also, I have crooked pinkies naturally. So when it comes to the creative stuff, because this is more of our creative writing kind of finger, it leans on kind of my visual arts finger or my healing finger, because this is Apollo and this one's Mercury in terms of fingers. So the shape of my fingers determines how I interact with certain things and how flexible I am at them.
Okay.
So, and the shape of our thumbs, it's kind of scary sounding, but it's really not that scary sounding. There's something called a murderer's thumb, where it looks like someone's taken a hammer to your thumb and it's super flat and it bulges out like this. And usually those are people with deflated egos. They really get on themselves a lot. If you want a good example of it, if you look at, for anybody who watches video game people, Game Grumps, Danny and Game Grumps, they recently did a 10-minute power hour where they were playing a thumb game where they had to land their thumbs down to their hands. And he showed everyone his misshapen thumb. He has a murderer's thumb and it's super bulbing around the sides. And it's funny because how that relates with his work. He's in a comedy band, kind of like Weird Al, and all of his music is very self-deprecating. He gets on himself so much. So I'm like, that's why you have a murderer's thumb. You hurt yourself a lot. So that's kind of what I mean when I say the shapes of your fingers can really impact some things.
Okay. So Linda says that she, there's a mark that shows that you're a healer. That's what she said. So she said, I have heard that.
Yes, there's a couple marks for that, actually. Everybody who is into the spiritual woo-woo metaphysical stuff, we like to hear the mystic cross. Usually it's an X between our heart line and our head line. Usually beneath the Saturn finger, beneath the middle finger. And that is gifted in anything magical, occultish, scary stuff. Unless you're into that kind of thing like I am, then it's not scary. Also, our fingers of Apollo, so our ring fingers, are the medical fingers. So you will see 5 little vertical lines called medical stigmata underneath the hand, underneath that finger. And if you have it, you're a natural healer. Does that mean that you can't be a healer if you don't have them? No. It just means that you are more gifted in it and it'll pick up faster for you. Because there are natural signs for like that on your hand. There's even one for if you're a natural talent at stringed music. It's silly, but it's like right there. They have it. So like if you there are marks for healers on your hands, but it's not required to actually be a healer, if that makes sense.
Okay. So does that answer that question, Linda, for you?
Let me see.
So, of course, there's always a delay. So, Linda says she has it.
Awesome. Then you are a natural healer. I love it.
That's amazing.
Yay. I'm happy for you. So if you have not taken it up yet, I would recommend Reiki of some kind, acupuncture, massage therapy. If you want to actually get a medical degree and work as a doctor or a nurse, do it. I will say though, one tip for the healers here and the teachers here, if you end up wanting to have children, your children lines will get confused with your patients and your students, because all of them show up underneath the same area, especially if you really care for a certain person. So that's how come, for example, I have all of my students, and I'm very mama bear about everybody. So all my potential children lines, all the children I could potentially have get mixed in with all my students on my hands. So, so that's something to look out for if you're trying to conceive right now or wonder about your potential for pregnancy.
So Linda's saying that she does do Reiki. And
wonderful.
And one of the things that I want to be able to share and kind of put a shout out to Linda is that she, and I don't know if this is new for her and she can actually maybe share, is for our retreat, she actually wired some crystals for us, for the women. And that was a gift that she actually had sent out to all of our women that participated. And so we each have a, and it was called the ceremonial, something to do with ceremonial. Sorry, I can't remember what it is, and maybe she can put it in the comments. But so she's so not only does she do Reiki, but she also does some crystal wrapping. So that's really cool.
That's wonderful, and that's the perfect kind of activity for someone who's a healer. I'd be interested to know the shape of your hand, because it sounds like you either got a water or earth hand. You're in the detailed, you're in the area of people who like very detailed work, very nurturing detailed work. I'd be very interested to see your hand, because that could tell a lot about your intent behind your patients as well. I love that you did that.
Yeah, so it was wonderful. They're beautiful. And I'm going to be, I haven't, because I just got home, I haven't had a chance to be able to post pictures. A few pictures, I actually had them because we had no access to anything. Ceremonial pieces is what they, and they are charged with healing energy. Oh, nice. Beautiful, Linda.
Wonderful.
And so, so during the retreat, I took different pictures, and some pictures I actually posted to Facebook or to Instagram so that they could actually post while I was driving, but obviously I couldn't do them all because otherwise it would eat up all of my data while I was driving. So over the next couple of days, I'm going to be sharing some more pictures about it from our retreat. And so I'll actually share the a picture of one of the ceremonial pieces that that Linda made. So she said her hands are very feminine looking with straight fingers.
Ooh, are your fingers longer or are they short?
Long fingers or short fingers, Linda? Why? I guess I don't have to repeat what she's asking you because you can hear her.
You're all good. You're all good.
Now, how's that for like, I tell you, I was like seriously in the middle of nowhere, no technology other than when I had to physically drive to town, and periodically I'd get ding, ding, ding as I had to go into town a couple of times. And when I say into town, it was into a small community called Mattawa. And so we were outside of, and it was still part of Mattawa, but it was outside of that. And so it was a 10-minute drive to get from where we were with no service into town, where we actually started getting dings on the road of the connection. So like there's nothing. And so Linda said that she was laughing too because I was repeating the question to her. So I'm glad that I'm like very humorous today. So Linda said her fingers are longer. I don't know if you can see messages, Rachel, because I know she's got things set up. So
yeah, I've got the comments up right here. Then you would have a water hand most likely, Linda, which would match your healing personality.
Nice.
It would mean for if you were to get a tarot reading and someone to pull a current card, a card that would represent you, you'd most likely have like a Queen of Cups or a Page of Cups. So someone who's watery and very nurturing, you know.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I love it so much. And I love that you took the time to take care of yourself with the retreat, because that's something else that really helps you feel empowered, not just for a day, but for such a long time. Because if you invest the time and the energy and the money in yourself to do something like that, it really helps nurture you. It makes you feel valid, and it'll help take away those stress lines. It'll help follow along with the kind of path that you want to take. Because really, when you find that kind of silence, you can hear yourself a little bit more. You know, when you disconnect from technology and you're far away, and you can just get back into earth and just get back into that natural pure energy. I love that you did that.
Well, and that's why I love doing, and I shared that with you before we actually went on live, is that's one of the reasons why I like going out there. So this is a location that I have discovered, and for doing a retreat last year, and so last fall, and most of the places that I do retreats, it's like intermittent, like, so it might be like intermittent access or whatever, but this here is like none. Like, we are completely disconnected. The owners have their house, so they still have, so if we have an emergency or if somebody needs to reach us, there's still a way of us being able to be in contact with the outside world. But the cottage is, the chalet is actually set back from the rest of the camp into, and we are completely surrounded by trees. So we have to drive down a long driveway, and we're just connected by trees. And so, and one of the things that I've learned to do is that when I actually facilitate a retreat, I actually have learned that I take the Thursday so that I can kind of like just get my own mojo into my own space before everybody else arrives. So I go in the night before. And so I'm there by myself, connecting with myself in preparation for the ladies arriving. And then we do the retreat. And then the Sunday evening, everyone else leaves and I stay behind that one extra day. And I don't do any packing or anything. I just disconnect. I disconnect and I take time for myself. And then, so then I have the rush, like, it's not really a rush in the morning, but like still having to do all the packing and stuff, but I don't do it that night. And it's just because it just allows me to be able to just stay connected in that energy and that flow and the healing that we have done over the weekend with the women. Then I actually get to transpose that into my own healing and my own self-reflections and being able to do that. So that's really, really important when I'm facilitating a women's retreat. So
awesome.
Yeah, so
it's you in your Zen mode.
Yeah. So Linda's commented again. So makes sense. She's because Pisces is a water sign, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And the way that it would go probably for your healing as well is the best description that I ever heard of Pisces was sometimes the fish swims up and you're happy, and then sometimes the fish swims down and you're not. So you probably feel that same ebb and flow with your healing, is sometimes you're really up and you're on point and you're just on fire, and then sometimes you need to take a little break and go down.
Yeah, so that's great. So I know that you have another commitment. So is there anything else that you want to be able to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to learn palmistry more than have a reading done, I have an event coming up next month from the 10th to the 15th to the 19th. In honor of the veil thinning for Samhain and in honor of divination and opening up my new program for palm reading, Intuitive Palms. I'm going to be having 11 other fantastic readers come into my group, and we're all going to be doing free workshops and talks about all kinds of different divinations. And on the very last day, I'm going to be teaching you how to 5 ways you can read your client's mind before they even sit down at the door using palmistry. So and there's going to be all kinds of other stuff. There's going to be runes and bone throwing and oracle cards and dream crystals and all kinds of other kinds of divination. So I extend the invitation that if anybody here would love to join us, you're more than welcome to.
Well, that would be great. Can you put a link?
Yeah, I absolutely can.
In the comments so that people can actually find it. So now one of the things that you said is Samhain? What's that?
Samhain?
Samhain. I don't say it right.
Yes, Samhain is the correct pronunciation for All Hallows Eve.
Oh.
So for those that follow the witch's calendar, that is the end of the witch's calendar year. That's like our New Year's. We just had for the autumn equinox this past weekend, Mabon, which is kind of our Thanksgiving. Now we have the end of the year. And basically that's the time that the veil is thinnest. So all that energy that you feel throughout the year that you normally get your peak back in the spring, you now are feeling it in full throttle all over again back in October. So it's the time of year because it's associated with autumn for getting rid of the old, welcoming in the new. We welcome in the snow and welcoming in getting that clean slate all over again. And Samhain, usually for readers and healers, it's associated with, like I said, the veil thinning. So this is when we do a lot of past life work, a lot of mediumship work, which we actually have 2 workshops on both. And it's really more about connecting to your shadow side, to that part of yourself that you don't particularly care for, picking out the things you don't like, and giving yourself a clean slate. This is also, for readers, the busiest time of year when it comes to your psychic businesses and your reading businesses. Everybody's going to be tossing out their offers for readings for all the end of the year. People are going to be shopping for it because they want to get readings for the new year to hope that 2019 is better than 2018. So this is really the prime time to learn what type of soul divination you have, because there is a type of divination that speaks to you if you choose to be a reader, and that works completely with your abilities and just makes your heart sing. So I wanted to give this opportunity for people to be able to find out what their soul divination is, what they adore, what makes their heart sing, really refine it. And if they already have their divination, they choose to really refine it so then they can create these amazing offers to jumpstart their businesses into 2019. So that's the whole thing with this event.
So now, so Hallows Eve, is that on Halloween?
Yeah, All Hallows Eve is typically on the 31st of October. And what would happen typically, if we look at history a little bit more, is this would be the time of year, like I said, for cleaning house, preparing for winter. They'd be making their jams and their dried meats to, stock away so they have food. And because if we look at Celtic tradition, for example, they'd be afraid more of anything that goes bump in the night that would take anything away from, invaders to actual ethereal spirits. So there would be some kind of protection use. That's how come we have our jack-o'-lanterns nowadays. They were a form of protection, only they would use like potatoes and beets instead of pumpkins. They would make barmbrack bread, which is a type of divination where you would bake bread and you would knead it. You'd put all kinds of little items into the bread and bake it, and the slice that you get cut for the new year is what you will welcome for the next year. Spending time around the hearth and the fire, reconnecting with the past, letting go of their old ghosts and the regrets and things that don't serve them anymore. So it's a time of year of getting ready for the new and letting go of all the old that doesn't serve you. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. So, and I really didn't, because Halloween is about going trick-or-treating, right? That's all that I know about Halloween, but I knew that sometimes it was called Hallows Eve, but I've never heard of, and I'm going to say it wrong, I'm going to butcher it again, Samhain.
Yeah, I do the exact same thing, and it's nothing bad. That just means you learned how to pronounce it from reading, which is never bad. Yeah, it's Samhain, but I won't bust your butt for calling it Samhain.
Okay, but that's actually really cool, because like I said, I've never heard of it before, so like that's new for me. So and we always learn something new every day. Actually, I've learned a lot of new things with you tonight, so that's awesome. So yeah. But so I am going to we're going to actually say goodbye, and if anybody has any questions or has anything else that they want to, if they're on the replay, then #replay. And Rachel is amazing at coming back and answering questions. Like, I can actually attest to that from being in her groups, and so she is amazing at coming back and giving back some feedback. So if you have any questions or if anything's come up for you, then jump back in and shoot Rachel a message. But we're going to head off so that Rachel has the opportunity to head off to her next event. Yep. So thanks a lot, Rachel, for hopping on, and that was wonderful.